Intolerable. But all those involved should reflect long and hard on this fact. John Gilbert reports.
At the house of Dr. David Kelly today, police forensic teams conducted their silent work, a silence reflected by the dead man's family. But their pain and anger was clearly palpable in a statement read out by police.
David's professional life was characterised by his integrity, honour and dedication to finding the truth, often in the most difficult circumstances. His expertise was unique and universally respected, and his life of achievements will always be a source of great pride to us. Events over recent weeks have made David's life intolerable, and all of those involved should reflect long and hard on this fact.
On Tuesday, government scientist Dr. Kelly was in Westminster testifying before a Commons committee. 2 days later, he bled to death from a slashed wrist. A post-mortem examination concluded today. Just a short walk from his Oxfordshire home, a knife and a bottle of painkillers were found nearby. Thousands of miles away, one of those invited to reflect was sitting down to a pizza. Tony Blair's Japanese trip, with its carefully choreographed photo ops, is rapidly turning into a nightmare. A stony-faced Prime Minister, when quizzed, could only insist that an inquiry would answer the questions he would not.
There is now, however, going to be a due process and a proper and independent inquiry, and I believe that should be allowed to establish the facts. And I hope we can set aside the speculation and the claims and the counterclaims and allow that due process to take its proper course.
But at a subsequent press conference, a shouted question encapsulated the thoughts of many.
Have you got blood on your hands, Prime Minister? Are you going to resign over this?
The response, again, silence. But these are questions Blair knows will not go away. It may never be known precisely why Dr. David Kelly died, but the intense pressures of a government inquiry into his actions may be called into account. The inquiry will want to know if Tony Blair's chief spin doctor, Alistair Campbell, placed any undue pressure upon Dr. Kelly to come forward, and whether Kelly's employers, the Ministry of Defence, leaked his name to the press. Defence Secretary Geoff Hoon was today sticking rigidly to the government line.
Well, obviously that's a matter for the inquiry. We will cooperate fully with what will be an independent inquiry conducted by one of our most senior judges.
This may be turning into a political battle, but it's above all the story of a dead man on a hillside, an image no amount of government spinning may be able to efface. John Gilbert, 5 News.
American army chiefs are creating an Iraqi defense force to help stop guerrilla attacks against US and British troops. Another American soldier was shot dead in the early hours of the morning as he guarded a bank in Baghdad. Emma Murphy reports.
Today, American troops still guard the Al Rashid Bank in Baghdad, but they do so knowing the same posting cost one of their colleagues his life. The soldier from the 1st Armoured Division died instantly when he was shot in a hail of small arms fire in the upmarket Al Mansour district of the city. Locals say a child was also killed in the attack. The soldier's death brings to 149 the number of American personnel killed in Iraq since the invasion in March, and means that more servicemen have died in the last 5 months than in the whole of the First Gulf War, which claimed 147 lives. Another soldier died yesterday when a bomb blew up his vehicle in Fallujah, west of Baghdad. It was operated by a remote control device and detonated as he crossed the main bridge over the Euphrates River. With the number of deaths mounting, UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan is expected to press the US-led coalition for a swift handover of power to the Iraqi people. He's warned they won't accept imposed democracy, and the continued attacks on troops appears to provide all the evidence he may need. Emma Murphy, 5 News.
Tens of thousands of passengers at Heathrow Airport were caught up in more chaos today because of a walkout by British Airways staff. Their unofficial action began last night in a row over working practices. Domestic and European flights were the worst affected. Some long-haul flights were also hit. Colin Campbell is at Heathrow now. Colin, how's it looking at the moment?
Well, Elaine, the mayhem is continuing here at Heathrow this evening. As you can see outside the entrance to Terminal 4 departure lounge, there are still very large queues inside. You can barely move. Now, British Airways claim that striking check-in staff have now returned to their desks. I've had a walk around inside the building and I can only see a few staff. It's much the same picture down at Terminal 1. Flights there have been cancelled all day. No flights are expected to leave for the rest of the evening. So for people trying to start their holidays, it's been a day of misery. For British Airways, it's been a public relations disaster.
All international, domestic, European flights up until 6 p.m. have been cancelled.
A scene of utter chaos. Security personnel took it upon themselves today to announce cancel flights to disgruntled passengers. Thousands queued both outside and in the terminal building. Many travellers were forced to sleep the night on the departure floor. For those with young children, a disastrous start to the summer holidays.
It's hot, they're tired, they've been up since 2 o'clock in the morning. And once you start queuing for this, you queue for restaurants, you can't find a seat, so it just snowballs from there.
I think the worst thing about it is the fact that there has been very poor communication in relation to what's happening here this morning. And people are very afraid and very fed up.
We feel we deserve proper information from British Airways senior management, and they're not here. It's absolutely disgraceful.
The unofficial walkout by check-in and baggage handling staff started on Friday, a protest sparked by BA's decision to introduce a new swipe card entry system. Unions claim it'll lead to unpredictable working hours. Today, BA apologised to customers and said it was doing all it could to improve the situation.
I can understand how people might feel upset with the way that they have missed their flights and having to sit around, and that is understandable. I would be in exactly the same position myself. I started by apologising, and I can't apologise enough.
But for many frustrated by the lack of information, tired of waiting for their flight, sorry isn't good enough.
So, Colin, what's the likelihood of further action by BA staff?
Well, Elaine, this is unofficial action. The staff have walked out of their own accord. That means that there was no ballot taken. So the unions say it is very difficult to gauge whether or not there will be further strike action by the staff. The unions say they do not condone the walkout, but they say they do understand why, because of pay and conditions. But this evening the unions are meeting with British Airways in a bid to try to find a resolution to this dispute.
Colin, thanks for the update. More stories making the news this evening. 30 men suffering from cancer may no longer be able to have children after their frozen sperm was accidentally defrosted at a hospital in Bristol. A freezer in which sperm was being stored at Southmead Hospital broke down. It held samples given over the last year by patients whose cancer treatment may have left them infertile. A pensioner is fighting for his life this evening after being stabbed 45 times by a burglar. Malcolm Dayton was attacked at his home in Blackpool when he confronted the intruder. The struggle spilled out onto the front drive before neighbours called the police, but the burglar got away.